to World Muslim Congress to United Nations Geneva. I welcome you all to this webinar organized by Kashmir Institute of International Relations in collaboration with World Muslim Congress as the third sideline event of the series during the 49th session of the Human Rights Council. Today, we will be discussing the reprisal against human rights defenders. As we know, addressing and preventing acts of intimidation and reprisals against individuals, groups seeking to cooperate with the United Nations on human rights has been a long-standing priority of the UN. Over the past years, the report number of severity of intimidation and reprisals have increased. These reprisals take different forms, from travel bans, threats, harassments, including by officials, similar campaigns, surveillance, introduction of restrictive legislations, physical attacks, arbitrary arrest, detentions, torture, and treatment, even sexual violence and denial of access to medical attention, and even killings. We have seen that in many cases now the UN has UN Secretary General, Under Secretary General has now the mandate to report on the reprisals under Resolution 12/2, 24/24, 36/21, and 42/28. And states are urged to prevent and refrain from the acts of international reprisals against human rights defenders who seek to cooperate or have cooperated with the United Nations, its representatives, mechanisms in the field of human rights, or who have provided testimony or information to them. By definition, all those cooperating with the UN and human rights activities, community workers, lawyers, journalists, human rights defenders, institutions, government officials, or who are helping or cooperating with the UN are the targets of the reprisal. So when we are discussing this, we have a special case study of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. We will discuss the reprisal in occupied Jammu and Kashmir because the human rights defenders and journalists have been walking on the razor's edge in the occupied territory since last 33 years. We have seen the killings of at least 19 journalists, 2 human rights defenders, and not to talk of harassment and detentions of many. At present, one of the senior human rights defenders and an internationally acclaimed human rights defender, Khurram Parvez, is in detention, and along with him is Mohammed Ahsan Ontu and Salman Yusuf. Khurram Parvez is the chairperson of Asian Federation of Enforced and Involuntary Disturbances and coordinator of Jammu Kashmir Coalition of Civil Society, and a well-known human rights defender. On his arrest, UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights tweeted that Khurram is a human rights activist, not a terrorist. And like that, Mohammed Ahsan Ontu, who is a foot soldier of human rights in occupied Kashmir before his arrest, he has been arrested many times. He spent already 5 years in Indian jail from 2000 to 2005. But in his recent arrest, before his arrest, he was tortured. He was thrashed many times by the police on reporting on the local cases. Because of the reporting of these human rights defenders, the UN was able to communicate to India at least 11 communications during this period. It was because of these communications, because time and again, when India restricted the communications from Indian occupied Kashmir, they put bans on the internet, they put bans on the newspapers. With the new media policy, they asked the journalists not to report on the happenings on the ground. Even then, the UN special rapporteurs referred to many of the cases, and also what we call the abrogation of Article 370 and 35, and thereafter enacting a series of laws that are there to make the changes in the demographic of Indian occupied Kashmir and make the people of Kashmir subservient in their own land. So these were when UN took all these communications and even the High Commissioner's spokesperson spoke on this, this became the case for the Khurram Parvez, and he was detained because of that. So today we will discuss that what is the responsibility of United Nations and others on these subjects. I have a very huge panel today. Some have joined and some may join us in the course of time. And we have a message from Alfred Zayas, who's a former special independent expert on the promotion and protection of equitable international order. He was also in the Human Rights Committee and chairman of Human Rights Committee and well-known name in the human rights systems. We may have his message first because Alfred was not in Geneva today, so he was on some holidays, so he has recorded his statement. So please, can we have the Alfred statement?
Yes, sir.
My name is Alfred Zayas. I am the former independent expert on the promotion of a democratic and equitable international order. I served the Human Rights Council from 2012 to 2018, presented 14 reports, and in nearly all of these reports, I focused on the right of self-determination, including the self-determination of the Kashmiris. In my report to the General Assembly 2013, in paragraph 69N, I specifically refer to the necessity of solving the Kashmiri problem through a referendum as foreseen in Security Council Resolution 47 of 1948. I also served as Secretary of the United Nations Human Rights Committee, and also I was Chief of Petitions in the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. My association with issues of Kashmir goes back many, many years. And I participated in many side events at the Human Rights Council with my friend barrister Majid Trambu. Now, I've prepared a very short statement because I want to give time to the other participants to say more substantive things. I just want to reaffirm my solidarity with the Kashmiris and recall that Article 1 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights stipulates the right of all peoples of self-determination, the right to hold referenda for self-determination, the right to determine their own futures, and of course, the general prohibition of the use of force and the general prohibition of occupying foreign territory. Now, if you permit, I will read this very brief statement, which I prepared, and I wish the panel a lot of success. Unfortunately, I won't be in Geneva when this is being held, and I won't have access to internet on those days. Excellencies, dear sirs, dear ladies and gentlemen, the Kashmir tragedy is a matter of concern to the entire international community on multiple levels. At the local level, it impacts the most fundamental rights of the Kashmiri people, their right to self-determination, to their culture and identity, to education, to freedom of movement, freedom from arbitrary arrest and detention, freedom from torture, due process, and fair trial proceedings. These are rights protected in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which must be examined by the Human Rights Committee when the committee considers the next periodic report of India. It bears repeating, the Human Rights Committee is not identical with the Human Rights Council. The Human Rights Council has a more political process, which is the process of the Universal Periodic Review. Now, it is a matter of concern not only to the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights defenders, but it is of concern to the rapporteurs on torture, freedom of opinion and expression, freedom of peaceful assembly and association, the independence of judges and lawyers, the rapporteur on human rights while combating terrorism, the working group on arbitrary detention, the working group on disappearances. So you see, it is a situation that can be addressed from many different angles, and it is important that the Kashmiri people address all of these rapporteurs and working groups and bring this to their attention, and insist also that the High Commissioner for Human Rights continue its investigations and continue its work, do a follow-up report to the two prior reports that had been done on Kashmir by the former High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zaid Rad El Hussein. We must be aware that on a global level, the Kashmir conflict could degenerate into a threat or a breach of international peace and security, a matter within the jurisdiction of the UN Security Council under Chapter 7. Indeed, the United Nations bears considerable responsibility for its inaction since the adoption of Security Council Resolution 47 of 21st April 1948 on the India-Pakistani question. In that resolution, a referendum was foreseen. There's nothing more democratic than a referendum, nothing more democratic than self-determination. It is irrational to occupy an oppressive people who only demand their self-determination. Already in 1948, the Security Council noted that both India and Pakistan desired that the question of the accession of Jammu and Kashmir to India or Pakistan be decided through the democratic method of a free and impartial plebiscite. The Council also considered that the continuation of the dispute could well endanger international peace and security. Now, 70 odd years later, we still have this situation, and it is urgent that the Human Rights Council and the General Assembly devote attention to it. I join my voice to that of Mary Lawlor, Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders, and other human rights groups that have criticized the arrest of activists in Indian-administered Kashmir on so-called terror funding charges. At the UN General Assembly's Third Committee in October 2021, Professor Lawlor focused on the persecution of Kashmiri human rights defenders. She said they face long-term arbitrary detentions for their legitimate human rights activities. Among the defenders she named were Khurram Parvez Imroz, Jalil Andrabi, Parvena Ahangar, Babar Qadri, Asif Sultan, and Parvez Ahmad Bukhari. Now, Khurram Parvez was arrested, as many of you know, by India's Federal National Investigation Agency, and his residence and office were searched and mobile phone, laptop, and books seized. Lawlor also made public a communication to India on multiple alleged acts of intimidation of journalists. This, of course, is also in the remit of Irene Khan, the rapporteur on freedom of expression, freedom of the media, freedom of opinion. The communication sent by Lawlor to India was in the context of the harassment of two Kashmiri-based journalists, Quasi Shibli and Akash Hassan, and Indian province Bihar's journalist Charan Huzan Tiwari. Lawlor also wrote on 1st October 2021 a joint communication to the government of India about unnecessary and excessive use of force employed by police on public roads against journalists and human rights defenders, and raids by police on the homes of other journalists, in particular journalist Quasi Shibli and his family. Shibli is a journalist and editor of the news website The Kashmiriyat in Anantnag city, and was the subject of a previous communication by Mary Lawlor sent on 3 June 2021 to India. I must comment here that very frequently communications sent to governments are not responded at all. When I was rapporteur on an international order, I did send communications to a considerable number of states, and I regret to admit that rarely did those states cooperate, and rarely did I get any specific responses. Undoubtedly, the abuse of so-called anti-terrorism legislation and other national security laws against human rights defenders, the use of trumped-up trials and coerced confessions, and the denial of legal access to defenders violates the obligations of the Indian occupier under rules of the Geneva Conventions, and also under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Here again, I'd like to insist on the utilization of all the mechanisms that the United Nations makes available to the Kashmiri people. You should address your communications not only to the special rapporteurs and to the working groups, but also to the treaty bodies. It is important in the context of naming and shaming that these matters be identified, these matters be addressed, and be addressed not only in the political bodies, but addressed especially in the treaty bodies, which are quasi-judicial. In this sense, let me reaffirm my solidarity with you, and wish this panel much success. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert, for your contribution and taking off. Thank you. In the main course of time, Ambassador Dr. Mohammed Shahid Amin Khan has joined us. I welcome him. Now I will straight away go, before commenting on anything else, I will go to Mehmet Sukrubuzil, as he has also to join another panel very shortly on Ukraine crisis. So Mehmet, you have this floor.
Thank you very much, and I do welcome all the other speakers, and it's an honor for me to be invited to this site event on the 14th Human Rights Session. And when you are speaking after Mr. Alfred de Zayas, it is sometimes difficult to say many things, because he is a real expert and he has told many important points. I prepared a speech on myself for the reprisal against human rights defenders in Kashmir, but after the speech of Mr. Alfred de Zayas, and when he mentioned the UN Security Council Resolution 47 in 1948, and in the resolution it is written the right to self-determination to be achieved by a referendum. There is an important point that Mr. Alfred de Zayas mentioned about human rights mechanisms, and human rights defenders are the voice of the silence, and they are the persons to achieve the implementation of humanity. It's not the paperwork of the treaties. Now, I would like to come to a point, but when we talk about the UN Security Council Resolution 47 of 1948, in fact, unfortunately, we are talking about an international wrongful act of an international organization that was at that time the UN Security Council resolution. Until at that time, maybe the international law on self-determination is not as of today, and the right to self-determination is not accepted as a jus cogens norm, and there was not the decisions of International Court of Justice just on Western Sahara in the occupied territory. But I would like to come to a point. The situation of the human rights defenders in Kashmir, let's define the territory first. I mean, this is the International Wrongful Act of UN Security Council, because it doesn't, at that time, when the self-determination decision was taken on a referendum, the resolution was not accepted under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. It's not binding as of today understanding, but as of today, because of the development in the international law, with the jus cogens norm, the resolution 47 moved from Chapter 6 to Charter 7, and it's a binding resolution, and there is no time limit. And then we come to the point of the Simla Agreement. It's not an issue between Pakistan and India. There is a dispute with the international community, with the UN Security Council resolution. Let's come to the point. What is the Kashmir problem? There is the wrong definition of the Kashmir dispute, and there is a misunderstanding of the using of the word of the self-determination. The usage of the word of the self-determination as of today for the problem in Ukraine or other places, it's much more on civil and political rights. If they ask for their aspirations for independence, it is remedial suggestions movements. But what we are talking about, Kashmir, is the problem of decolonization. And the wording of the self-determination in the UN Charter, in Article 1 and Article 55, does not reflect the wording of the self-determination subject to Article 73 of the UN Charter for the Kashmir dispute. Let's come to the point. The most important problem, the UN Security Council Resolution 47 is a legal document that the UN Security Council did not accept the instrument of accession of the Maharaja for Kashmir. Why? This is the important point. Because India said for Jinadak that it's a vice versa position of Kashmir, where the population was mostly Hindu and the Maharaja were Muslim. India said during the UN Security Council meetings in 1947 that it is the verdict of the people to decide for their future, vice versa position. And India, by its own words, in the concept of good faith written in the UN Charter, said that the instrument of accession signed by the Maharaja of Kashmir is null and void. And it is the reason that the UN Security Council asked for a referendum. So the legal thesis of India as of today for Kashmir is null and void till 1947. But at that time, the concept of decolonization was not accepted as a jus cogens norm, and the UN Security Council Resolution 47 was not accepted as a binding resolution. Now, we come to the point that it's a binding resolution. And then when we come to the binding resolution of 1948 resolution of the UN Security Council, then it must be a follow-up mechanism. In which terms, this is the important point. But now we come to the point that the problem of Kashmir is an unfinished decolonization process. When we say it's an unfinished decolonization process, we need to come to the point that's the Indian Independence Act of 1947. The colonial power, that is Britain at that time, said that, okay, it's up to you. When it says it's up to you, the case never finished. We have got two examples. One is Western Sahara, Second is Palestine, because it's a kind of same position that the administrative colonial power did not finish its decolonization process. When it's not a finished decolonization process, now the position of the human rights defenders goes to Article 73. When the UN Security Council in 1948 got the decision of a self-determination referendum subject to Article 73 of the UN Charter, now we come to the priority and the hierarchy of the laws. And when it is a binding resolution, then there's another international wrongful act of UN Security Council resolution came into life. This is not implementing Article 73, paragraph E. That means when they got this decision, the UN Security Council accepted India and Pakistan as the legal administrative states as of the Britain. And when they are the administrative states, they have to give periodic reports subject to Article 73, paragraph E to the Secretary General. And when it is in this position, we have got another point. Now, human rights defenders from Kashmir has a legal right to send their letters on the situation in Kashmir to the United Nations Decolonization Court. Because there is a mechanism, it's an unfinished decolonization process. And the UN Security Council accepted this. And when the people, the territory does not belong to a state, and let's remember one thing, the dispute between India and Pakistan is not a dispute of frontier. It's not a dispute that International Court of Justice will say that the frontier must pass from this place or that place. No, it's a problem of implementation of the decolonization, granting for subject to Chapter 11 of the UN Charter. When we come to this position, we have got a different story now. Our story is that all the human rights defenders from Kashmir has a right to send a letter to the decolonization committee subject to the violations of their human rights, and the decolonization committee must act through it. I mean, the most important problem is that when the problem of Kashmir is defined wrongly till this time by the human rights defenders, unfortunately from especially Kashmiris, on a dispute, territorial dispute, the dispute has been misunderstood and given reference to the Simla Agreement. There is no territorial dispute on Kashmir. The dispute is the problem of the implementation of the decolonization of the princely state of Kashmir. And as of India said for Junadak, the instrument of accession of the Maharaja has no value. And if it is valid, then they have to give the Junadak back to Pakistan. This is what I would like to say. And maybe we need to organize another meeting on how to how the human rights defenders on Kashmir can get into touch with the decolonization committee on their legal status and violation of their human rights. Dear Mr. Vani, I am so grateful for my invitation, and I am so sorry to leave. And I say that also the other panelists that I have to leave, and wish you a wonderful site event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gruguzel, for your intervention. You are always bringing new inputs to the discussion, like that of decolonization. And as you rightly pointed out, that it is, the Maharaja's accession was not accepted by the UN Security Council, and thereby the Security Council resolutions are very much relevant there. And Kashmiris should also send their communication to the Decolonization Commission. And thank you very much. We will take lead from you in future how to approach the Decolonization Commission, because so far we have been engaging the special procedures and Office of the Human Rights Commissioner on different kinds of human rights. Thank you very much. Now I will go straight away to Ambassador Hussain Bussar. at our civil rights representative at UN Geneva. Ambassador is a very good friend of ours. He's always available on our webinars. And unfortunately, last webinar we had when Ambassador was a guest of our ex-ambassador, ex-senator and minister Abdurrahman Malik, who passed most recently. May Allah bless his soul and rest him in eternal peace. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Altaf, for the kind invitation. Dear colleagues, dear chairman, hope everybody is well. And I also would like to share today with you some of our personal views on the right to freedom of speech. That is one of the main UDHR articles. And as a result, I would like to add that as a result of their commitment to defend the human rights and their activism to expose violation by the authorities, human rights defenders often fall victims to reprisals by those who want their voices to be silent from government authorities or armed groups. IHRC received many testimonies of human rights defenders in the Arab world and most countries that try to create false files for them, who are subjected to various types of reprisals, such as arrest, arbitrary detention, enforced disappearance, or summary execution. And this is what happened on March 13, 2022. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at this date executed 81 people, including 7 Yemenis and 1 Syrian, and we are not too closely familiar with the rules of trial on which those rulings were based. And I believe that the High Commissioner, Ms. Michelle Bachelet, also did a statement on that, and she was very firm. And she also shared with us our worriness on what really happened on this day. And if we ask on the procedures, it's like crucifying the Christ. I mean, it's not possible to have a straight answer or a clear answer from the authorities in Saudi Arabia on what happened, because they have their proper rules that I believe, they believe that it's in conflict with the international law, but it isn't. Islamic laws bind itself also with most of the international laws. In the same context, there are strange cases also in Lebanon that occur, and free opinion is politicized, so that if a massacre occurs in a Gulf country and some human rights groups organize seminars or television episodes to criticize or condemn the massacre, the Gulf authorities, and based on their requests and their concern, will call the judicial ministries to hold these people accountable and drag them to the security agencies where they mostly were imprisoned or humiliated because they dared to shed light on these violations. And this is recently, it happened when we had the session on the violation in Bahrain. Unfortunately, the authorities in the Gulf tried to put pressure on the Lebanese government to hold responsible and to arrest most of the Bahrainis who spoke at the session. And because they lied on what type of crimes that were committed by the Bahraini authorities. And it seems that such statements is not suitable to the authorities on the other side. So in order to curb this phenomenon and ensure that human rights defenders work in an environment that guarantees their safety and enables them to defend the rights of others, the position of the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights defenders at the United Nations has been established, charged with receiving complaints about reprisals they may be exposed to, as well as there is an Organization Against Torture in Prison in Geneva, OMCT, and others UN and international organizations that deal with these issues, and also should hold responsibility to make sure that such violations is not being implemented. But the problem is not in the clear and explicit laws, but in the implementation of these laws sponsored by the United Nations and signed by most countries, and are the first to veto that. So we have dozens, if not hundreds of them, without quick international measures to put an end to them. Here, I would like to point out that unfortunately, there are types of human rights activists and types affiliated with local associations and affiliated with international organizations that operates under the international and international ceiling are also subject to the same procedures in many countries. So I'm going to generalize and not speak only on specific countries. So there is a problem that we must point out with some security services that are not trained or not familiar with international matters and have referred to the United Nations Human Rights Council for a while on these violations, in which we are accredited as international committees, in order to take quick measures with the authorities to put an end to these violations and work either to hold them accountable or train them to improve most of the aspects, data, and foundations on which these international committees work. So I'm going to end my speech until here, and I'm anxious to listen to the chairman and the other speakers as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Huali Saad. Then now I will give floor to our friend, Duke Salman Khan from South Africa. Salman, Saab, do you hear me?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, floor is yours.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And fasabbi bismi rabbika ala razi, all the praises to the Lord, the beautiful, the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all the praises and all the salutation go to our Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the best and the best of the human right defender. I think it is a very, before I like to say thank you very much to Altaf Wani, the program director, and to the sister and a comrade in arm, Shugupta, Professor Shugupta, who is always relentlessly working very hard on all ends. So Jazakallah for the invitation, but it is a somber moment. You know, when you look at it, what the world that we are living in, you listen to the speeches and speeches and speeches, and you listen and you do the observation on the United Nations current situation. When Ukraine has been attacked, all the human right, I would say the resolutions are coming in place. All the International Court of Justice is in action. You can see the European Union is in action. The American President Joe Biden declaring with a contempt the Putin as a war criminal. But on the same breath, the people have been massacred. The people have been butchered in places like Palestine and Kashmir and many other places. But the same leaders of the world, especially the West, has been silenced. And that's a question that we should be asking. And it is very sad that, you know, after the assassination of Shujat Hussain, the journalist, he was also the human rights advocate, Muhammad Ashraf Asif, Salman Yusuf, Parvez Khurram, and Yasin Malik, and many other, Maqbul Bhatt. Those are the people, those perished, some of them perished in a jails, some of them lingering in the jails, and thousands we do not even know where they are. The only crime they have, that they stood up against the tyranny of India. They stood up the tyranny of any dictator, and they talk about the human rights. I think it put a lot of emphasis and it put a lot of pressure on United Nations, especially the current mandate holder, which come in action on the 1st of May 2020 under the United Nations General Assembly. The mandate was given to Mary Laurel, and the decision was 43/115, that she had been given a very, very strict and very, very clear mandate to protect the right of a human right defenders. The only thing that we see is a lukewarm statements. We do not see much commotion. There are people like Khurram Parvez, a decent man, a family man, an honest, hardworking man, our brother, a comrade, and a husband to a woman, and a father to the child. We do not know where is he, what condition is he. And it's apart from the lip services from Ms. Lolo and many others, there is nothing really have been done. What activities are taking place in the United Nations in the current situation because of the Ukraine? It's not happening for the Kashmir. And that's make me think, and many people start thinking, is the presence of a United Nation is relevant? Is the presence of a United Nation organs and the bodies and subsidiaries is still relevant? Are we living in a divided South and North? Are we still colonized by the imperialist power from the West, from the United Nations, from the United States of America, from the European Union? Those who applied the law as they like and where they want. And I always said, the United Nations need to be decolonized because its application only come in being when it is against the African leader or a Muslim leader. And I'll give you an example. Saddam Hussein, he was a tyrant. Yes, I'm not a fan of him. Gaddafi, Omar al-Bashir. And all of a sudden, all the laws and all the resolution was passed within the hour, 2 hours. There was 11 resolution was passed. And what happened to the Iraq? It turned beyond recognition. What happened to the Gaddafi? Only 29 people was killed. And the United Nations brought the resolution. But when the Modi and his Janta, RSS, have been massacring the people, one of my good friend, Advocate Babar Qadri, was shot dead. He was also a human rights defender. He was an activist, social activist, a decent man. What the United Nations has done, what the world has done. And as we're talking, we do not know our brother Khurram Parvez, what is the condition he's living in. And it's going to be again, another statement is going to come from the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the human rights defense, but there is no actual action has been taking place. And that's very sad. That just tells you are we really, is the United Nations still relevant in today's world? When thousands of the cases reported by Amnesty International, the mass grave founded by the Human Rights Watch, many other NGOs are working. Those are bringing a authentic, even established United Nations, their own special human rights body. In 2018, after the demise of Burhan Wani, there was a 49 pages report with the Freema Faki cases implicating India in a serious allegation of the torture, murder, rape, and so on and on and on. We can go into the list. Then another report come, 53 pages. And the India not only denying, not allowing the United Nations Special Rapporteur or United Nations human rights bodies to do a fact-finding mission. Like example, in 2018, in the time of the BRICS, when the Modi was coming here, myself brought a case of a war crime in South Africa against the Prime Minister Modi. And we had a prima facie case, and the warrant of arrest was issued. He was not coming to South Africa, but he was sent a special chartered flight by our president to bring him under the presidential immunity to the South Africa, and he was flown back within 3 days back to his country. But the case of a human right, or what you call it, a war crime has been opened. Now we're looking for a referral. We're knocking at the door of ICJ, International Court of Justice, and ICC, but there is no will from the same body which is talking about to call a Putin a war criminal because maybe he has scared, let's say, destroyed his army, maybe 1,000, 2,000 people. But when the Indian state terrorizing for the last 74 years, the peaceful people of Kashmir, those are asking for the right of self-determination, as the earlier honorable members of the United Nations, those earlier officers were saying that this is a legal issue, and this is the people of the Kashmir are fighting for the right of self-determination, and they have a full right because The instrument of accession was never accepted, not only by Pakistan, not by the people of Kashmir, but also United Nations. But what my question is, then what is the repercussion afterward? Why do not we bring the resolution like what we done it for the Gaddafi, like what we done it for the Saddam Hussein, that their places or their land has been turned into the stone ages, but India is still thriving. India is still bringing what you call it, the Kashmir files, where they're trying to claim forcefully, as usual, that the land of Kashmir is belong to the Pandits. Can you get more of the audacity in this world? My question, again, I'm going to praise that, do we still think the United Nations have a set standard to apply the law and rules and regulation as they applying to the Muslim leader or to the African leader, let's say the Umar al-Bashir? Now, let me give you one example. The life of Umar, what's his name is, Khurram Parvez, in danger. We know that he's in danger. I'm sitting in South Africa, thousands of the mile away from Kashmir. Because I'm the human rights activist, in 2008, I had an assassination attempt. I lost my vision, and I still live in the threat. On the 23rd of this last month, I applied for a march at the Indian embassy. Indian officials arrived at the police station, at the place where we applied for the permission for the march, and they wanted to have, under the false allegation, get me arrested in South Africa. After listening to all their allegation and asked for evidence-based, a solid evidence-based, their case was thrown out. So they tried to get me arrested just a few weeks ago in South Africa. So I think the life of any defending person, male or female, like Rana Ayub, a journalist, her life is in danger. My life is in danger. Khurram Parvez, we do not know he's still alive or not. How many people gone? But what the world is doing about it, that's the question that I want to leave it into the hands of a very, I would say, knowledge panelist, what and where we need to move toward. Do we look at the OIC, which is merely a OIC? Where do we go? What do we do? Do we decolonize? Do we revolutionize the United Nations and change the way they do the business and get their application of their laws more universally applied, whether it is a South-South or whether it's a North-North, whether it's a Western power? When Joe Biden said, that Putin is a war criminal, but he forget that Obama have killed more people by the drone attack in Afghanistan. He forget that Bill Clinton caused more mayhem. George Bush and Sr. have killed thousands of the people in the Gulf War I and II, but there is no war crime against them. Tony Blair is fully implicated into the war against what is called the weapon of mass destruction after the 2011. Do they get trial? So the law is only applicable to the non-European and non-American, or to the Muslims and African? I think that's what I want to leave it. And thank you very much for the invitation. May Allah Ta'ala protect all of us. And I can tell you one thing, the sign of the desperation is showing from the India. They know they're going to lose the case because there is a more commotion. The Kashmir is in question because Khurram Parvez, Salman Yusuf, Muhammad Asif, Shujaat Hussain, they're all Kashmiris. They are brave sons of the soil, the brave daughters of the soil who are fighting. And India is feeling, because there is no longer a struggle. It's becoming an international movement. Many other people, those are listening, they are fighting, standing up and fighting all the time and repel or abrogate the revoking of the Article 370. That just shows how desperate he is. Now the Kashmir file is coming and many other things are happening. I think they're feeling they have been cornered, and is a sooner or later, I always said the last 7 decades was belong to the struggle of Kashmir. But the next decade is, this is our decade that we will be seeing.
Thank you, Brother Salman, for your wonderful intervention. It's true that the United Nations or the power corridors have the double standards. That's why we have a large conflicts around the globe. Wherever they see their own interests, they do intervene, but where they don't have the their own interests, they don't intervene there. So it is the double standards of United Nations and all the powerful countries which has made this universe a conflict-ridden universe at present. We don't see having so much of human rights regime. But when you talk of the human rights, or we talk of the Office of the High Commissioner or special procedures, I think they have been doing their job. Special procedures have been doing job. But as already Alfred Zia said, that the states don't respond to the queries of their, and those mandate holders don't have any army to implement. It is a political decision taken by the Security Council or the Western powers. I hope that goodwill will prevail, and as we are witnessing at currently the Ukraine crisis, and we see the polarized, how the world is polarized, how we are at the brink of the third world war. But let us hope for the best, and we believe in the systems, and we have to be in these systems so long they are placed in. We have to work under these procedures which have been put forward for. Along with that, the struggle in Kashmir is going on. That will continue. That will continue till we achieve our goal. Despite they have put all our leaders in jails and they are in difficult conditions, they have put all human rights defenders in jails. They have also silenced media and all other activists. But even then, the common people in Kashmir, they are struggling for their right to self-determination. Thank you very much. Now I will go to Ambassador Dr. Talmim Innocent Ahur. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Yes, good afternoon from Nigeria. That's in Africa, West Africa precisely. I want to appreciate the organizers for the opportunity to speak at a very pivotal forum like this. I would like to send special greetings to executives of the International Human Rights Commission. I have cited the World Chairman, Ambassador Dr. Sahid Amin Khan. I've also cited Ambassador Dr. Haitham Boussaid, my immediate boss, has taught me a lot in the diplomacy and human rights diplomacy generally. The conversation today
I think there's a problem with the internet.
Ambassador, you are not audible.
In Nigeria, there is always the problem of internet.
So we see till Ambassador joins us. Can we go to Ambassador Dr. Mohammad Shahid Amin Khan Sahab for your contributions? Dr. Sahab, you have the floor.
Sir Altaf Singh Bani Sahab, this is a very tremendous efforts. The Kashmir Institute of International Affairs is taking place under your dynamic leadership, day by day, raising the voice and concern of the people of our Kashmir, those who are facing the reprisal, and as well as the tyranny of the one so-called superpower in the subcontinent. In Indian administrative Kashmir, government forces have been responsible for the serious violation, including unlawful killing, enforced disappearances, torture and rape, and other sexual violence. These grave violations by the security forces in the Kashmir are met with the chronic impunity. Perpetrators are rarely properly prosecuted for the human rights violation, leading to near total immunity for the crime committed against the innocent peoples of Kashmir. Non-state armed groups have been also responsible for the serious abuses, including attacks against journalists and human rights defenders. Although the Pakistan is not free from the allegation, which has been monitored in Pakistan administrative Kashmir, there have been reports of unlawful restriction on the freedom of expression and association, as well as the misuse of anti-terrorism legislation against the protester, those who protest for the right of self-determination or right of freedom in the Pakistan administrative Kashmir. We gravely concerned by the increasing threats faced by and reprisal against human rights defenders and others who have been cooperated with the United Nations Human Rights Mechanism or the international organizations. In recent years, particularly in the elaboration of the human rights reports by the High Commissioner for Human Rights Office, on record, we urge the Government of India to ensure that human rights defenders and journalists are allowed to carry out their work without threats or reprisal, and take adequate steps for to protect them from non-state groups and as well as the government forces. We remain concerned that the governments of India continue to deny access to the human rights, UN Human Rights High Commissioner Office and other human rights mechanisms towards the Kashmir. We always call on the government of India to grant the unconditional access to these mechanisms as well as to the human rights organization and media. But there is no response from the government of India on these calls from the last 10 years as it has been evaluated the situation. Human rights defenders are under threats not only in Kashmir, in every country. For example, my Twitter account was suspended by the tutor just because the raising of voice of the peoples of Palestine and people of Kashmir and the people of the Western Sahara. This is what is the failure of the United Nations and international human rights mechanism, that they cannot defend. They cannot defend from the double standard of the multinational companies, those who are running the social media even. So when like us are not protected, so you can understand the people, those who are raising the voice into the Indian occupied Kashmir, as a human rights defender, how the international community can protect them. Kashmir is an oldest item on the agenda of the United Nations and its mechanism. But none of the international community actors are taking serious this issue, as far as the thousands of people have been killed and butchered, thousands of women been raped, thousands of girls been died by making suicide in the river of Jhelum and Neelam, and still there is no answer from the international community toward the voice of the peoples of Kashmir. Absolutely, I will be saying that those who call themselves an advocate of Kashmir, they are also misdirected, and they are also responsible that this case is not heard properly on the international forums, because they are confusing the international community by their defending, by their wrong perception over the case of Kashmir, including, I will not spare the government of Pakistan. The government of Pakistan is also responsible for this confusion. It is in the favor of India and we are helping the India to keep this forcefully occupation on the people of Kashmir and on the land of Kashmir, while we are confusing the international community with the different wise over the case of Kashmir, and we are not taking the right and actual situation towards the international community. Secondly, when we are saying that the international community is having a double standard, obviously international community is having a double standard because of the size of economy of India. All policies today are based on the business perspectives. Why we are not understanding this phenomena that 300 million people, 1.3 billion people are living in India, and it is the biggest market not for only China, for Russia, for the United States of America, and also now if you are seeing the reshaping the world and the blocks, then India is a partner of the Europe, and India is a partner of the United States of America, against China and against the Russia. Whether the India will take stand in between Russia, they will make it the balance, but India is an appropriate actor for themselves, for the all international actors. The failure of the United Nations is not known today. Failure of the United Nations is very visible from the last 2 or 3 decades. When the question, as the brother Salman has said, that when the question of Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, Umar al-Bashir arise, they act quickly and swiftly. But when the matter comes on India, they sleep on the all atrocities done by the Israeli state over the people of Palestine. So both have the very oldest matter in front of the international community, and international community has closed the eyes long ago on these chapters. If we want to wake up the international community, there are other means. They should feel the threats of their existence. They have to feel the threats from these 2 old and longest disputes. When there is a threat, they will act. As far as there is no threat, they will not act to save the people of Kashmir or the human rights defenders or the media peoples. They have the double standard on everything. This is we have to accept. And we are living, if we are living in the reality, we have to accept that there are double standards, and we have to deal the double standards accordingly their wishes. So as far as the raising the wise isn't for the people of Kashmir, for the people of Palestine, for people of Western Sahara. We raise the wise for everyone, but with raising wise, I'm sure the matter will be not resolved until and unless there is a mass resistance. Now the matter is a resistance. How much strong resistance will be that will wake up the eyes of a sleeping international community partners. Otherwise, you can also sleep and we can also sleep, because we cannot, we are helpless. We cannot give a freedom. We cannot save the life of the people of Kashmir, neither the people of Palestine nor the peoples of Western Sahara from the occupying powers. Because all the advocates and all the supporters and defenders, they can just raise voice. They can't do anything. They can't act anything. So it is a time that we have to unify our struggle. We have to show the resistance, and we have to let the international community know that these issues are also resolvable, and they must resolve according to the international norms and standards what they set for. If they set for East Timor and South Sudan, they must set these standards for the people of Kashmir and people of Palestine both together. It's because the European Union and the United States of America goes behind the South Sudan and East Timor because of the Christianity that is not fair enough. And the Israel and India is allowed to do everything, all atrocities, genocides of the innocent people just because these two territories belong to the Muslims. This is unfair attitude of the international community. From the very beginning, I am saying and I am requesting to the Kashmiri diaspora especially, they can play a role and they are not playing it. They should force wherever they are, their legislators over there, their policy makers, their decision makers. If the people, Sikh peoples of Palestine can have a referendum in UK over the issue of a Khalisatan, did the Kashmiri peoples have done it this exercise in the last 75 years? No. So we have our own faults. We have to erase our faults and we have to go for the resistance. My meanings of resistance is not that you should take the arms and you have to fight. My resistance is resistance on all levels, intellectual level, to mobilizing the policy makers, to making the demonstration, to engaging the media, to engaging the policy makers and decision maker and legislator in every country. This is the one kind of a resistance also. Otherwise, I must say that the women rulers, from my own view, I didn't see President Gaddafi, President Saddam Hussein, and Umar al-Bashir as a criminal, as much as the ruler of the United States, ruler of the Israel, ruler of the India, and the NATO allies, those who has committed the war crime against the people of Iraq, against the people of Yemen, against the people of Syria, against the people of Afghanistan. So I cannot set double standard on a one page. That I am saying that the Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, and Umar al-Bashir is a killer, and George Bush Senior, George Bush Jr., Bill Clinton, Obama, European Union are the human rights champions. So criminals are criminals and they should face the criminality at one place, on a one page. If Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein is a criminal, then these European standards and these powers are also criminal, helping the Israel and India to butchering the peoples, innocent people, while they are demanding the right of self-determination. Thank you very much, Altaf Saab, and hope my comments are not disturbing you, because I am very vocal on my views and on my approach towards dealing the issue of Kashmir and towards the dealing of the issue of Palestine. I have no sympathy with any ruler or any state until unless the people of Kashmir and peoples of Palestine are not getting the freedom.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your very energetic and valuable comments. Though we always value your comments. We always listen to you. That's why we always have you on the panel, because your contribution is always valuable to us. You rightly pointed out that there are double standards in the international community that we have been discussing time and again. If these double standards were not there, we would have seen the resolution of Kashmir, resolution of Palestine, and many more conflicts around the globe which are happening. We could have not seen so much of devastation and bloodshed around the globe if there were no double standards prevailing in the countries. As far as the struggle is concerned, struggle in Kashmir will go on, and that is going on. That's a peaceful struggle met with brute force, but you know, the time, there's a limit always. There's always a time for how much we can sustain these repressions through peaceful means, and that will force the youth of Kashmir, because they are in desperation, they can take the arms again, and there will be more bloodshed around what we can see. About the diaspora, you said, you rightly pointed out, though our diaspora is doing a great job in their own capacity, by organizing rallies, by organizing seminars, by organizing protests, and each and every occasion, they don't leave any room for that. They do it each and every time. But what we need to do, what I have been emphasizing for long, is that intellectual output, what you told intellectually. What India has done to the moment of Kashmir, to the freedom struggle of Kashmir, to the Pakistan, by bashing Pakistan, by looking for Pakistan in each and everything, and by branding Kashmiri resistance as a terrorist resistance. The Indians have done it so craftfully by disinformation, which lastly the EU Disinfo Lab uncovered how the Indians managed this all disinformation for last 20 years. We have not to create any disinformation, but what we have to do, we have to write the true and actual picture of Kashmir, the history of Kashmir, the legality of Kashmir, and by convincing the international audience, by convincing the international civil society, by convincing the international think tanks and non-governmental organizations on this front. As I can see from last 3 to 4 years, I can see that there have been lots of reports by, as you know, yourself, an NGO and human rights NGO like you and me. Others are also like us. They can only speak, they can only write reports, they can only put forward the things. And as I can see, the international human rights watchdogs have done a great job to that extent. They have been uncovering what India has done in Kashmir. Now, most recently, now we see these days, now the Indians have now released a Kashmir File, a movie named Kashmir File, thereby also cementing their vote bank. It is BJP-RS agenda to cement their vote bank and to increase their vote bank by creating a hate campaign against Muslims, against Kashmiris, and also against Pakistan. And that is to be confronted through intellectual level by our those people who are intellectually sound, who are technically sound, to deal with these people. And likewise, we have to make our interventions at the international think tanks very tactfully, very articulately, producing our viewpoint over there. Because we don't demand heavens, we don't demand anything else. We demand what has been accepted by the United Nations Security Council and what has been accepted by the India and Pakistan at the international forum. We demand that. We don't demand any heavens from them. So international community has a responsibility in this regard. And we see as the responsibilities go to the international community, but what international community is doing in turn, they have till date, as you rightly pointed out, that Indian economy is a huge economy. They are investing in that economy. They have interests in that. But at the same time, I can see a huge in India by itself, the way the current regime in India is perceiving things, the way they are on one hand crushing the Kashmiris' peaceful struggle through force, and on the other hand, the way they are changing the demography in Kashmir, and also by making life of the minorities like Muslims and Christians miserable in India, that has not earned India a good name at international level, and international civil society is slowly but gradually coming to this point that India is in the hands of some fascist regime, which is dealing very harshly with its minorities and with the people they have occupied there. The people of Kashmir will create their avenues, and we have to look for those avenues. Unfortunately, after the 5th of August situation, we saw the Corona lockdowns everywhere in the world. We had already that lockdown in Kashmir, but world also witnessed that lockdown, and they realized what really the lockdown means. So we hope that good sense will prevail around the globe, and people will come to the rescue of those who are unheard, who are suffering, who are subjugated, and this issue will be resolved. Otherwise, as we all know, the Kashmir issue is now, we were talking about the nuclear flashpoint, but now as China becoming a third active party in it, and India having a strategical partnership with the United States has also increased the dangers of nuclear flashpoint in this subcontinent. So thank you very much. We have a short video. If we can see that, then we will go back to the Ambassador Talveen. She has again joined us because of perhaps there was some power restriction or something, internet problem with them. He has again joined us. Let us have that small documentary. May I have small documentary? This was a short documentary on the human rights defenders, which we prepared very hastily today. It was prepared by our intern, Anisa Nabi, who is herself a victim. Her father was enforcedly disappeared, and her mother was also killed by the Indian agents. So now I go directly to Ambassador Talveen Innocent Ohor. Sir, you have the floor again. You are mute. You are mute. Please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, sir. Yeah.
Okay, so I was saying I'm not too far from the Atlantic Ocean from where I'm speaking to you. So we have a lot of poor network connectivity here. That's just a problem. I'm going off and coming back because it's something I cannot control. So sorry about that. I even had to change my device with that of a fisherman in order to continue this webinar. And thank you so much. I will quickly summarize actually my thoughts, because we have all spoken and we're not talking differently now. There aren't any dissenting views. It's all on agreement that everyone has spoken. I've been so carefully taking down the points. Yes, the speaker from Southern Africa came up with an argument about the fact that the United Nations does exist. These infringements continue, these violations remain, reprisals against human rights defenders happen on everyday basis around the world. And he gave instances, and the United Nations is sitting back to watch, because the argument is, if anything should be done at all, it should be done by the United Nations. I'm not a spokesman for the United Nations now, but I believe Ambassador Dr. Hassan Boussaid will stand with me on this. You see, the neutrality of the United Nations will not allow the neutral status of the United Nations. It's for both the oppressed and the oppressors. If you think they are oppressors, quite all right. But each side of the divide has to come to a dialogue as far as the United Nations is concerned. The United Nations, I have studied over again, my knowledge of international diplomacy has to live for everybody in the world, has to live for all countries that are signatories under its charter. So if an issue is happening in one of its areas of jurisdiction, yes, it can express its concern and take its position. It can express its concern and take its position clearly and state out its position in the public domain. But to think that the United Nations could now eventually constitute itself into an army to go and ensure that one side is supported against the other side, it's a pipe dream, and it's very wrong to even have that notion in the first place. If it's about peacekeeping, then the United Nations may want to delve in hard and do its best to ensure that peace returns to an area that there's need, or the situation has now become that of our peaceful coexistence. But I said I was going to try and run through what I have on my mind as far as this sideline event of the United Nations Human Rights Council is concerned, before perhaps poor network connectivity becomes my problem again. I am concerned about the fact that United Nations Human Rights Council Resolution 22.6 of March 2013 established principles and standards that states should follow on enabling, like providing an enabling environment for human rights defenders. Now, that resolution does exist. The resolution is there, and it has taken, just like the several other resolutions and protocols that have been mentioned in this Zoom meeting. The resolution provides step-by-step abhorrence on what should not be done to a human rights defender. Reprisals against human rights defenders in the first place, it's a wrong notion. Morally, it's completely wrong, because like the short documentary we just watched, it concluded by saying that human rights defenders are not terrorists. They can be terrorists. Yes. Now, self-determination agents or champions cannot be stemmed to be terrorists, because they're coming against the concept of seeking a referendum, asking for equity to be done, fairness to be put in place. And so from the onset, no one should see a human rights defender as a terrorist or see a human rights defender as violating any rules at all. And so when you go to this resolution 276 of March 2013, you will see the necessary things. I penciled them down. Do not criminalize work of human rights defenders. It's stated there. Allow every human rights defender and the entire public express public support for human rights defenders. Allow people to express public support for human rights like we're doing now. We have to express our support for human rights defenders in Kashmir. We have to express our support for human rights defenders anywhere in Africa, for instance. I was at the verge of going into a very long background about what's happening in Africa before the network took me away. And so I may not have the opportunity to go back to that now. And we must avoid the legal restrictions on human rights defenders. It's the protocol, the convention does not say illegal restriction. It says even legal restrictions on human rights defenders should be avoided because they are human rights defenders. Now you get to certain areas, they call restricted areas, and a human rights defender walking within that terrain, conducting for the sake of humanity and conducting for the sake of patriotism and ensuring that he's delivering what is very, very attuned to equal understanding of both sides is always restricted. And it's stated in this declaration of the United Nations Human Rights Council that they should avoid legal restrictions for human rights defenders. Yes, if we go further, it's stated again that we protect women human rights defenders, protect defenders of minorities, just like those in self-determination, just like the Kashmir issue, just like in Africa here, we have it in every country. We have situations where there's need for those who speak up for minorities to be seen as trying to push forward a point. And that point, it's not for a small nucleus of persons to accept. The world will accept it or the world will reject it. And in most cases, minorities have rights that have been violated, trampled upon, and not allowed to fester and grow. As a result, anyone speaking for such minorities, be they indigenous peoples, the person is coming up with a reason for consideration for what are the cries of a certain group of persons. There are yearnings within these communities that need to be looked into. And that's the point there. Now, when we talk about guaranteeing freedom of association, it's there in our constitutions, especially in democracies. But even though it's in our constitutions, we still find it not happening now. That doesn't affect the human rights defender alone. Yes, but then predominantly, human rights defenders have to be faced with that issue of freedom of association. We talk about respect NGO autonomy. Yes, NGOs should be given the autonomy to operate. NGOs must have the autonomy. NGOs, especially NGOs that have reached the level of working within the United Nations system, that have gotten some status within the United Nations system. I believe that without the United Nations in the first place, there won't be talk about human rights principles or anything to do about human rights. The birth of the United Nations, especially the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it's the most important document about human rights in the entire world. And it recognizes the NGOs, it brings the NGOs' activities into its fold, and those that have been scrutinized and got accreditation must have the autonomy to operate in countries. You can come into a country and you have all the relevant recognized legal papers, and then the autonomy is not granted to you, especially where your autonomy is constrained to be that of what the government wants. The government on the ground wants even NGOs to toe their land, koto actually, whatever it is that they want in the first place. These are all against. I'm talking against the background of the Human Rights Council Resolution 22/6 of March 2013. It's there in black and white. It's not anybody's thought of how it should be. Now we have to avoid limiting access to funding, mostly by NGOs or by even sovereign nations who seek to get linked to corporations or companies, or generally the private sector, or even governments to seek fund for their activities. Now, if the activities are translated or misinterpreted to mean that these activities are against the government self-determination, for instance, now they will work such reasoning and rationalize it into terrorism. It's a big situation out there in Kashmir that we're talking about now. It's happening to those who want to access the fund to help their people. Yes, and it's just stated in our letters delivered by the United Nations for us to live by. And we are signatories to this. We're countries are signatories to this. The situation out there, the history between India and Pakistan, and now the part we're talking about, Kashmir, we're all part of the United Nations. So why won't we live by these documents, by these papers that we have accepted? Now, if you facilitate peaceful protests, you're doing the right thing because it's there. Now, peaceful protests, how many times have we heard that these protests are happening somewhere in Kashmir and they are rebels, they are attacked, they are pushed back, they are stopped, they are arrested? These are reprisals against human rights defenders, because we must facilitate the government, the people, everyone in society must facilitate peaceful process, especially the government and its authorities, its agencies. Now, we must avoid resorting to public safety restrictions. Yes, resorting to public safety restrictions, it's clearly understood to mean that you don't allow a situation where your actions in trying to stop a defender of human rights becomes an issue that affects the entire society. Now, it goes further to say we must guarantee freedom of expression, which is everyday conversation, every sing-song in our document, in our constitutions, in our presentations, and to ensure access to media of one's choice. Well, to ensure access to media of one's choice, it's a big problem. I may not know about that properly in Kashmir and other regions of the world, but that is a big problem in Africa, because we have the government media, we have the private media, and the government media, it's the media that where you go to, you're saved, and whatever you say is accepted or is censored and then accepted. But the private media, is so alienated such that anything you are able to drop out there could get you arrested, could get you put behind the bars. I have a situation right now in Nigeria where one of my human rights activists working in a place, Kano State, was arrested because he published that a cleric, a religious cleric, raped a girl, raped a minor. And if the publication had said a young man on the street raped a minor, there won't be any problem about that. But that he published that it is a religious cleric that raped the minor, himself is the one now in the prison. This is actually an issue I'm handling at the moment, because he says a religious cleric raped a girl. And that's double standard in the first place. That's double standard. And you are now, if even the license of the media company has been withdrawn for allowing that publication. All of this, the media company now becomes an automatic human rights defender, and the publisher, the author of that publication is also a human rights defender. Now we must accept dissenting views. Dissenting views, non-acceptance of dissenting views is the problem in Kashmir. That I hold this view and you hold the other view. We can't work together, or you automatically become the enemy. You automatically are slated for the kill. Now, that's a terrible situation. And these are issues. Immediately I got this invitation, I looked at this human rights Council Resolution 22nd, 6th of March 2013, and I picked gradually. They're still there. This document is still there. This document is relevant and important. I am even thinking that at the end of this webinar, I can do a report summarizing better and linking it to the situation in Kashmir and forward for the organizers of this webinar to see how the document could be useful. But I usually have to discuss with Ambassador Dr. Hassan Busaid when I'm doing this kind of reports because he goes in and out of the UN and he gives us the confidence that we are properly part of the United Nations system. Now, we must grant access to information. Who is going to allow us today? Who is going to allow the people today of Kashmir, those fighting or those representing the downtrodden, those that have deprived and those whose rights have been taken by force, who is going to allow the access to information? If there's a treaty signed in the 18th century, if there are documents that need to be brought out from the coffers that they have been kept tight, so that we can look into it. We've signed Freedom of Information Bill. We've signed relevance. These nations stand by this. In fact, once there is a concept of democracy, these things are accepted. And a part of it, and even if it's not democracy, that the people has given unto themselves this type of government, it behoves on certain provisions of the rules in a codified and uncodified constitution to have provisions where there will be access to information. And without access to information, there is no freedom, there's no human rights. There is no human right. There's no how you can talk about human rights without access to information. These are bedrock of how it should be. Now, avoid limiting access to detainees, which we say every day. I go on CNN, I'll go on cable net very soon. And if I have to review the archives of what's happening in Kashmir, you have a defender of human rights that has been put in the Gulag, and you want to have access to him. Even his family wants to have access to him. Or even if he dies in detention, the family wants to know how he died. The family wants to have access to the body. I mean, I'm talking about the cops now. And all of these are denied. But these are natural provisions that we must insist on. Well, how do we insist on this? Holding webinars of this nature, pushing the reports, carrying through. I'm returning back to my very first point, where I addressed the speaker from South Africa, who looked at it more from the side that the United Nations is a lame dog, not doing anything and not being effective. But I still call it the fact that they have to be neutral in the circumstances, and it's not easy being neutral. To every one of us listening now, to every one of us involved in this webinar, if you have to be neutral in a situation, sometimes you are accused as being even with the oppressor in the first place. So it's not easy for the United Nations to even maintain its neutrality status. Now, we must ensure judicial independence. Now, how do you enjoy? Why is it that that's necessary in the first place? The judicial independence shows that the man affected, the man oppressed, the man going into oblivion because he's having a heavy burden on his shoulders, back in Kashmir or elsewhere in the world, it shows that this person will have a reprieve from the law, if there's judicial independence. But if there's interference, and if the government of the day, and I believe the government somewhere is doing this against the people of Kashmir. If you think I've not done the research, maybe you're right. But I can hazard a guess. And it's an intelligent guess that this is happening. If that wasn't happening, if the judiciary had its independence, the people will move on to the judiciary. The people will report certain aspects to the judiciary. Even the issue of detainees not being allowed, not allowing human rights activists or even family members access to the detainees. These issues will come before the judiciary. And if the judiciary is very independent, these things will be looked into. Now, that links up to the concept of respect for the rule of law. It links up also to the support cooperation with the UN. Yes, now, if this document is there, if we know about this document, if we know that the United Nations represents human rights, if we know that the United Nations expresses its concern, how it should be and how it should not be, the governments or the whatever nucleus of operation, that circle that is against operating in tandem with what the United Nations has put out there, it's already violating or pressing down the rights of human rights defenders, and it's a direct reprisal of human rights defenders. So I think I come up, down. I looked at this document, and and all forms of reprisals. It's in this particular document, and we're talking about these reprisals today. These reprisals have to come to an end. Perhaps I'm going to title my report, which I'm sending to Dr. Hassan Busaid, ending all the reprisals on the defenders of human rights. And then we might look at the reports on the situation of human rights defenders. Now, that's my job. That's the job we all have. It's accepted, it's endorsed, it's in our letters that we must report on the situation of human rights defenders. If they are given fair treatment, if they are given, treatment in line with standards and norms accepted, or if it's something that is quite obnoxious and very, very wrong. This is what is contained in that document. I tried to make a very sharp analysis of the document, drew up this summary gradually, and I came to that very point that these documents should be looked into. It should not be a document. Part of the document says cooperation with the UN. Part of the document, part of this declaration says of the Human Rights Council 22/6 of March 2013. It says we must cooperate with the UN. So if there's someone who is not cooperating with the UN, in the case of Kashmir today, it is that person that is doing the wrong thing. Now, the more you do the wrong thing, of course, we won't sit back here and say, advise those who are being offended, who are being, pushed away, even in illegal manner. That is not quite legal as it should be according to what we have accepted as our documents within the United Nations system, still do not have the right to constitute themselves into beginning a war. It's inevitable anyway. It's inevitable. I know again that when you refuse coexistence, if you refuse coexistence, then you're refusing existence in the first place. So it's inevitable that they will pick up arms. They may find a way of surviving because they want to coexist and you don't want them to exist. So no one is going to exist. A very bad way to conclude my submission, but that's my take and submission during this webinar. I'm going to forward the document at the end of everything. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, and I thank God my network didn't go out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rim, for your very elaborative input on the situation of human rights defenders, how they should approach, and you talked about the United Nations, that it's very difficult to be somewhere in between, but they have to do the justice. We don't ask United Nations to be neutral. Neutrality doesn't mean justice. Neutrality is no justice. They have not to be neutral. They have to be judicious. They have to judge the things from what they see and how they are to be resolved. Neutrality is no answer to anything, that they will remain a neutral towards an oppressor and also oppressed. That's not the neutrality. They have to do justice. As far as our situation is concerned, when it comes to Kashmir, when we talk about the human rights defenders, we're currently talking about, and as you rightly said, that human rights defenders have to report to the United Nations special procedures or to the Human Rights Council what they are doing. That is why we are discussing this, because all those who were cooperating with the UN systems, who were instrumental in getting the 2 reports of the United Nations, who were instrumental in making the special rapporteurs to send communications to government of India, they have been put behind the bars. We talk a lot about the Khurram Parvez, Parvez Imroz, Parveena Hangar, Asan Untu, and many others who are the foot soldiers of human rights who have been given the international awards. RAFTO award was given to the Parvez Imroz and Parveena Hangar for their rights for human rights, which is next to the what we say it, Nobel Prize. And also Khurram Parvez is also has a award as young leader for this because of his work, what he did. I can show you only, you said right to information, that is non-existent. For a small period of time, right to information was available in Kashmir. And in that 1 month's period, we had this book. This is 885-page report, Structures of Violence, if you can see, Structures of Violence in Kashmir. And this is all from the government sources. Having this report, which has been in the United Nations, which has been sent to each of the ambassadors in Delhi and other places, and also circulated around the globe. We do not see any such thing from the international community that can make India accountable of its crimes against the humanity. What they did instead, they caged the human rights defenders. They put them behind the bars. That has become a big sin in Kashmir to communicate with the United Nations. So at this point of time, we will like to see how, unfortunately, the council has become it is a political body, and decisions are taken according to the blocks, the political blocks which are already made in the council. They don't take any thing on merit. What we see, what United States say, the European Union aligns with the states of United Nations. All European countries will align with their statements. What the African group will say, the African group will align with the African group statements. What the non-aligned will say, they will align with their statements. But at the end of the day, they will have something in between them. They will issue statements against each other. Likewise, OIC will align with the statements of OIC countries, align with the statements made by OIC. But when their personal statements, when you go through them, you won't see any reflection of aligning with that statement which was made by OIC. So this is a point of concern for all of us, how we can go ahead, how we can make those in power accountable. That's a very difficult thing. It has become a very difficult thing. Only those in power, they are making the oppressed accountable for their innocence. They are not doing any justice to that. As you talked about, there is a remedy. You can go to the judiciary. Our judiciary in Indian occupied Kashmir, that is totally militarized. All the decisions so far, which have been given by the judiciary, were against, not in favor. And in the Supreme Court of India, from the day this Article 370 and 35 was abrogated, 20 petitions are in the Supreme Court of India. But the Supreme Court of India did not take any of those petitions till date. And again, there were some 29 people on death row in India, but only a Kashmiri was hanged who was on serial number 28. He was hanged. None of the Indians was hanged. So he was hanged. So that is discrimination on the part of judiciary. Each and every organ of the state in India is in hand and glove with the BJP and RSS, the current regime there. So there is no room for any local reparation for you. You can't go to court. You can't file a case. And we talk about the journalists. And journalists in Kashmir, they can't report anything on the human rights situation now after the 5th August 2014 because of the new media policy. They have to send a copy period to publication to the department that makes all the censorship of that, and only that can be. If they anywhere report anything, they face that their declaration will be cancelled. They cannot get advertisements from the government because Kashmir is not a big place. There are no big corporates. So only the source of income for the newspapers is the government advertisement. And if that does not come to you, the people are now thinking of taking different jobs. Only 3 days back, there was a report from Press Council of India, which is a regulatory body of Government of India. This Press Council of India visited Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir because the press club in Srinagar that was closed by the Indian army, that was closed here. And then the Press Council of India visited in Kashmir. They met journalists and there were editors from the Indian media also in that meeting, and all those people testified before them. And there's a horrible description even by the Press Council of India, which has tried its utmost to cover the truth, but has not been able, because what the people said over there, that has been documented. They tried to overcome with their recommendation that this should be done, this should be done, this should be done. But as we see, none of the recommendations, even from the UN High Commissioner's reports, even from the special procedures, even from the civil societies, or for that matter, the special procedures, nothing has so far had any impact on the policies of Government of India, be that the human rights defenders or peaceful assembly is not existent there from last 3 years. There's no peaceful of expression and all these things. I hope you people who are at the international level, you have a huge connections around, you study Kashmir, the rights violation in Kashmir through your own prism, go through those details, see what is happening on ground. Then I urge you to disseminate that information to your counterparts, to your you fellows you have around the globe, so that we can create an awareness around that. And only then, if the civil society, think tanks and others are aware, and then they can make some impact on the governments over there. So I think we have a huge discussion. Thank you very much for all of you. We are looking for your report you sent to the Ambassador Hossain Boussad. We hope he will share with us, and we will go through that and see how we can use that. Thank you, Salman Khan Sahab from South Africa. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed bin Shahid Sahab. Thank you, Dr. Talawim. Thank you, Abu Saad Sahab, and others. And Dr. Iqtar Chima could not join us because he has a death in family. And I don't know why Dr. Nadeem Abid Malik Sahab could not join us. He was supposed to join us, but he could not join us. Anyway, thanks to them. Our condolences to Dr. Iqtar Chima for the demise of his close relative. We pray for his soul. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you to you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.